appreciate that very much from Leah.
Yes.
And I do believe that what you brought forward, I have it. I'm going to send it to Maria so that she can give it to you. There was a lecture held. And this lecture, the lecturer said that it is very important for them to continue in the academic field as they have developed ideologies to keep Africa in a very poor state. And a state not only economically, but educational also, that they always will feel that they are the reason why, it's their fault that they are the reason why they are poor. And he said it is for the benefit, for the economic benefit of America, for the economic benefit of China, and for Europe. And they had to keep it like that so that they can enter and make use of the resources
The
that
natural
are
resources.
in Africa. So when you hear that stated, and that it is passed over into the curriculum, into the system that you're being educated for, under ideology, wow, that made me wake up.
Yes.
It makes you realize the lies that you're living.
Mm-hmm.
You're living so many lies
I think
at
it
the
would be...
benefit of a group
Excuse
in
me,
the society.
Morgan. I think about the curriculum of the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey, that is exactly what his school is about.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk about your, the ideology against the curriculum of the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy.
Sure. To your point, education in a colonist society for African people ruled over by European powers must do three things. It must convince African people, the victims, that you have no future independent from this power structure. So there is a need to induce a psychological surrender in black children.
Exactly.
So they never challenge European domination.
Correct.
Number two, that education must be so inferior that it guarantees opportunity and privilege for European children.
Exactly.
This is where you get into the systemic racism inherent in the standardized testing, the systemic racism that is inherent in the various assessments that they give our children and in the curriculum itself.
Correct.
And the third thing that colonized education must do is it must make African children loyal to the very system that oppresses them.
Correct.
You must be willingly and proudly committed to the oppression and destruction of your own people. And for those high achieving African children that they find, whether it's here in the Caribbean, whether it's in Europe, the States, Africa, there is a brain drain, an African intellectual brain drain, where they seek to take our best minds away from their communities and use them to further the agenda of the European power structure. To the Queen's point, Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, in addition to science, language, math, and civics, we will have political and military science. It's very important to make sure African children understand the arts of self-defense. It's also important that they understand the world they live in today. One of the small criticisms I have for the African-centered historical community, although I'm a part of it and I support it, we focus so much on ancient history to the exclusion of recent history. Knowing everything about Africa, but knowing nothing about the 21st century world you live in is still going to produce a politically uneducated student. So political and military science. After that, we have agricultural and agronomical science. We want to make sure that our children are scientists of growing food, of the farm, of crops. As you know, so many African people around the world live in food deserts. And two things in the black community, anywhere you go, is consistent. Foreigners control our money and non-Africans control our food. And any race of people that is comfortable letting outsiders control your economics and control your food is a people content with their own destruction.
Exactly.
Then we have dietary and nutritional science. It's one thing to know how to grow it. It's something else to know how to prepare it. So we want to make sure they can actually make these crops into food that our people will be willing to enjoy. Then we have economic and financial science, understanding the rules of money. One of the big problems we have in the States, we have it in Canada, we have it in the UK, South America, and I'm sure it's an issue here in the Caribbean, as I've seen as I've traveled through the islands. Our children are being told, you must go to the university to be successful.
Yeah.
As a result of that, our young people are abandoning the industrial building trades, the carpentry, the plumbing, the electric, the roofing, the welding. So you're creating a monopoly in these trades by non-African communities who are going to dictate the building industry for the next 50 to 100 years while we get degrees, many of which are practically useless after we get out of college.
Correct.
I'm not against college. I have 6 degrees, but they have to be relevant degrees. Too many of our children are racking up loan debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars with a degree that will not help them pay it back. Then we have spiritual science. We want to make sure our young people understand the ways their ancestors communicated with the Most High God before Abraham, before Jesus, before Muhammad. Nothing's wrong with the world religions, but understand there's an ancient spiritual technology that you should know about in case you want to make use of it.
Yeah.
And the final one is science of the black man, woman, and child, the family. We want to make sure our young men understand you have an obligation to produce family with a black woman, by the way. As Pan-Africanists, we do not support interracial relationships, although we respect everybody's relationship. And the reason we don't is so many black women in the diaspora will never get a husband because of the miseducation, because of the mass incarceration, because of the fratricide, because of the poor health, because of the mental illness of black men. A lot of our women will never get a husband. As black men, as the keepers of the culture, we got to be committed to the black woman, because if we're not, no one else is. That is not to deride or dismiss anyone who's in an interracial relationship. But for our children, we want them to understand the importance of being loyal to your own woman and being loyal to the black woman unapologetically.
Amen.
That's very deep.
So,
Yes,
so
because
and in detail,
and a lot of details.
deep and in detail.
I know we only have a few more minutes, but I think what you just said can empower a lot of people in the sense that they can start evaluating what you said, how it correlates in our system. And it's so deep and so traditional, and it's so rooted within the society that it is very difficult to just, talk about it. We don't talk about it as much, do we? We
Yeah.
don't.
I do believe that you're absolutely right, Morgan. And we can see what Dr. Umar said about the colonial system in regards to education. It already starts with the language. The instructional language that we are using is something that we, that really creates obstacles for a lot of children whose potential never gets developed up to, the highest level possible. And I do believe that because something that Dr. Umar said yesterday when he arrived in Aruba, and he heard me speak English with him, then Dutch with my son, then Spanish with the people at the restaurant, and then Papiamento on the phone. And he was so impressed about that, the fact that we speak 4 languages, but also that we have an African-based language, our Papiamento. That is a language that is like a heritage from the time that that we were brought over as enslaved people, and he thought that was very powerful for us to still have our own language, and that we should be very proud of that. So I explained